Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection to that which is bigger than us, to the big mystery, to the cosmic dance, to the big play that we're all part of. And, at our various levels of understanding about what that play is and the symphony that's happening and what role we play in that orchestra and who the I is actually, even part of that conversation. So there's a lot going on right now for everybody, and including me. And we're getting some new insights into all of this right now that is, very miraculous and interesting and fascinating and embodied and experiential. And, so our conversations on Soul Nectar Show are going even deeper into the deep end of the pool. And, so we're going to see a lot of really fascinating conversations unfolding here. They already have been, but they're going to get even more interesting. So I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. I love having these conversations. I love exploring my consciousness and understanding things from a higher perspective and also from the human perspective, and learning how to do that dance of soul and human, learning how to do that dance of feeling and knowing. And it's a fabulous dance. And if you're interested in, taking that dance further for yourself, then I invite you to explore Butterfly Circle with me group program. Entry points are January, May, and September if you're interested in that kind of thing. And this year we're going to go to Peru, to the Sacred Valley at the end of June. So anyone who joins, pretty soon will get to go to that. So very, very exciting. And today's guest, I love meeting an old soul. Like, it's just nothing like it. It's just such a relief. And to have the level of understanding that you can just have a conversation with a person who really gets it. And today's guest is definitely there, Vasi Huntalas. Welcome to be on our show today, Vasi.
Hello, Carrie, and hello, everyone.
So Vasi guides women entrepreneurs and other leaders to clarify their vision and nurture unshakable self-belief. And we're going to talk about what is unshakable self-belief and where does it come from. She's an intuitive coach, transformational workshop facilitator, and speaker. As founder of Ignite Your Soul, she inspires pioneering leaders who are shifting the paradigm of business from force to flow. After rediscovering her creative and intuitive abilities in 2014, Vasi experienced her own shift, which transformed her life and her life's work. She pioneered an art process that has led hundreds of people to reconnect with their purpose, intuition, and creativity so they can joyfully fulfill their visions. She's got a master's in whole systems design on organizational transformation, leadership, and adult learning. And she's got a podcast herself, Dreaming Big, Leading Boldly, on Women Lead Radio. And she interviews women who are growing and leading their businesses innovatively. And so I'm very excited to have more conversations over there too. So this is really exciting. So Vasi, today I wanted the listeners to really hear your journey, because wherever we are on the path, when we hear someone else's journey, it helps us to see the common points. And it's like a marker, like, okay, there I am. I'm there at that part of the journey. Okay, cool. Then I have a marker about maybe what it might look like. Because I really do believe there's commonalities to the awakening process. The details are different, but the commonality and the stages are very similar. So when we hear your story, it's very helpful for our own journey, to, as a marker. So yeah, how did you start waking up to all of this?
It's so funny because this morning, literally, I woke up thinking about what I used to do as a little girl. So I think I'm supposed to share that with you here. But I grew up on a ranch here in Southern California, orchards, and I used to go and sit on a rock. Actually, that was a grinding rock for Native Americans, and just sit there and connect. And I don't even know if it felt like God or my soul. I don't know that I had those words, but I can remember just sitting there and just being connected to the earth and the sky and just feeling a sense of something more than this body that was on earth. And no one in my family got it. And I come from a traditional Greek background, and it was like, what's that thing she's doing out there, And of course, now we call it meditation. You know, there's a whole awareness around that. But at that time, it was just this odd thing that I did. And so I think there's that memory, and I think many of us have that memory when we come in, that there's something more than this lifetime, you know, and we go in and out of it. So I went in and out of it. That was my journey, going in and out of it. A very significant experience for me was when I was 17 and I was diagnosed with a golf ball sized lump on my thyroid. And I went in for surgery. It did not look good. I was only 17 and was quite large. And I remember the night before the surgery in the hospital just saying, I know I came here for a purpose. I don't know what it is yet. I was just going into my senior year of high school. I was more preoccupied with the things that a 17-year-old is thinking about. But I was like, please, I know I'm here. And so I just made this plea, and this I can only describe it as a light came down and came through that area of my thyroid, and I heard all is well, all is well.
All is well,
And
and that's not what you think, right? Because you're
oh,
thinking, "Oh, my mortal coil is threatened."
yeah, yeah. So it was very odd because I slept really well that night. And even though my surgery was in the morning and it was delayed and I had to keep waiting, I was like, oh, all is well, all is well. I'm healed. I think I actually heard that you were healed, all is well. So, so I came out of surgery and I was told it was the golf ball sized lump is benign and you are fine, all is well. And, you know, you might have to have thyroid because it was so big. We had to take out the whole right side, you know, of your thyroid as well, the lobe. And I remember sharing it with some of my family, and the priest came in and there was a lot of confusion and there was a lot of, what is she talking about? People don't have direct experiences. And
That
so
doesn't happen. Only the chosen are connected with God.
yeah, and it was just, and so part of the message I got from that was not to talk about things spiritual. And I'm saying this because I know also that a lot of people have gotten that message either very you know, like subtly or subconsciously or very consciously. So, but something that happened that was really a gift is because that golf ball sized lump was so large, they had to stretch my vocal cords, so I couldn't talk for 2 weeks because your vocal cords work by vibrating against each other. So I was in this really internal place, which was really actually great, you know, to integrate that kind of experience that I really couldn't talk to anyone about. So, so that was a significant part of my journey. And as I went into corporate and then later became an entrepreneur, you know, I would go in and out of this. You know, the spiritual was very separate from my day-to-day human life. I went to meditate, or I had groups I belonged to where we, you know, connected, but they were very separate up until about 5 years ago. And that's when I had my own experience with art again, and remembering how that helped me when I was a young girl connect to what I feel is my big self. You know, we all have a big self. And so the more I started to do that, the more I brought that into my work. And then that's when everything changed, because then there's that beautiful integration where our big self and our little self are working together and merged in union.
In union, yeah. You know, when you were telling your story about your thyroid, what was coming to me was that, you know, a lot of us on the planet in this, what I would call the second wave, have come in to embody and to heal the lineages directly through
Mm-hmm.
our personal experience. And if you think about the thyroid and women in a woman's body, well, that's like your power center really as a soul, is to be able to speak with confidence through your throat chakra.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so there could, you know, it's very possible there were a lot of things that needed, you know, just to be healed. And the most expeditious way to like remove it was to just have it be part of something that's surgery, you know, like, oh, just take
Mm-hmm.
that out, you know, just remove
Mm-hmm.
that content. It doesn't serve a messenger of, you know, of feminine empowerment to have that clinging onto her vocal cords, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
she needs to speak.
Yeah. I love what you're suggesting there. And there really was a sense of, because then I started delving into spiritual things after that, spiritual healing, and I had learned about that connection with the throat chakra. So even though I was quite young, I became very aware that it was important to find a way to speak my truth. And that self-expression for women right now, oh my gosh, we're seeing this blow up in our world, right? And so it's so important to not only, express the truth, but to be connected to that. And I think that's such an important part of self-belief, because sometimes we don't even know it's our truth. It's just so natural to us. We don't even think to put it out there.
Yeah, finding the truth is a tricky thing, right? Like finding your personal truth is challenging because we're conditioned and domesticated with a lot of belief systems from our ancestry, which is really it's a system of protection. It's a system of
Mhm.
design to help us to live the best life that our ancestors figured out how to live. So here's our
Mhm.
best go of it. It's what we thought, right? And then to
Yeah.
embody that. But then at a certain point, if you're really here for big revolutionary changes to human consciousness, then you need to be able to liberate yourself from all of that content as maybe not true for where you're going, for where you're
Mhm.
bringing us in the world.
Mhm.
So how does that land to you in terms of like your own journey, bringing yourself into finding your own truth underneath all the
Yeah.
conditioning of your raising and how you were raised?
Yeah. I think it really, we have to give ourselves permission to question. And that's what I did. I gave myself permission to question everything. And I was labeled a rebel. And, I'm sure maybe you can relate to that, Carrie,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, okay, but what is a rebel? And now I think of it, and the women I work with and the people I connect with, like yourself, that we feel a affinity for each other. It's about being pioneers. And that's different. That's really different than being a rebel, because a
Yes.
pioneer is a visionary who can see the way forward and who can see a new way. So in order to do that, we have to question the old way. We have to, in some cases, blow up the old way. And that's a job for some people. I'm not saying that's been my journey to blow up things, but I've continued just to find my truth, be on my path, speak that. And that, it's not always easy. It's not
It's
always
not
easy.
easy. I
Yeah.
love the distinction that you just made. This is so beautiful between being a rebel and being a pioneer.
Mm-hmm.
Because the rebel energy, I have definitely tussled with the rebel energy in my life. And the rebel energy, though, is when I explored it within myself, that rebel energy is in relationship with the paradigm. It's like it's
Yeah.
saying, okay, this paradigm is controlling me and I'm going to rebel against it.
Right.
Whereas being a pioneer feels much more like, oh, I see a new way and I'm not going to try and change anybody, but I'm going to go this way. And if you like this way, you can come with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
very different energy.
Yeah.
It's not combative toward the existing paradigm and those people who are engaged in it still, because they're at that level of maturation of their soul that they're still participating in that paradigm. But those of us here to bring a new paradigm have to just honor that not everybody's ready to accept the new paradigm yet.
Right. Right. And no amount of pushing or rebelling is going to help that. If someone's not ready, they're not ready. So it's, um, I'm remembering on my desk in when I was young, I had this quote from E. E. Cummings, and perhaps you've heard of it. It was something like, to be yourself in a world that is doing its best night and day to turn you into someone else means to fight the hardest battle you can ever fight and never stop fighting. So
Yeah.
that was kind of my motto. And had you heard that quote
Yeah, I
before, by
know,
the
but I
way?
love that quote.
Isn't
Now
it
I want to
great?
have it on my computer.
And I don't remember things well, but obviously that was important, because that was a lot for me to remember. I'm surprised I still remember it from the time I was a teenager. But what I learned, what completely shifted for me, like perhaps in the last 5 years, is that it's actually the opposite. To be ourselves in this world is the easiest and the most natural thing.
Yes.
And so if you step into that pioneer energy, you're not spending all this energy fighting against something. You're in a creation energy. You're in the visionary energy. And it's amazing what shows up and how much more resources we can bear to go forward on that pioneering path.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I've stepped into that space of pioneer and through healing my own mother wound and my own stuff where I was being a rebel to the paradigm I was born into. And then I've made this shift within me through the work I've been doing to go much more in the direction you're suggesting of being a pioneer. in my experience of this, it's so much cleaner, and the messages that come through are very clear. They
Mhm.
don't have like what I would call stickiness. They're not sticky. They're not,
Mhm.
and if somebody argues with it, it's not sticky at all. It's just sort of like, this is just truth. And then the stickiness is the person's inability or whatever to see the truth, but it has nothing to do with me. And I used to take everything really personally, like it was somehow my job to explain everything to everybody and help them see it. And if they didn't understand it, then or they got upset, it was like my fault that they got upset. I'm not in that space anymore. I'm like in a totally different space now, where I realize they're going to get it whenever they're ready to get it, and I've just planted another seed. And sometimes there needs to be disruption in order for people to wake up. It's just like the egg has to crack in order to make an omelet. Like, you can't make an omelet without cracking the eggs. It's not possible.
Right.
So it's not a bad thing if people get upset, or it's not a bad thing if people get really challenged by something and want to argue with it. It's actually not a bad thing. It's like, that's just part of their process in cracking open their egg,
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
anyway, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
Those are things.
I think that's right on. That's been my experience as well. Because what it's like when someone is reacting to something that we said, it's like I began to learn that it's not my responsibility, right? And I used to feel so responsible for that. Like I had to make them better, or I had to explain it a different way, or there was something wrong with me that I wasn't communicating that, and I would work harder and harder at articulating that. And then I realized that sometimes it is just planting the seeds, what you said. And so, but the most important thing is that we're in integrity with our truth and
Yeah,
we
that
can't
is the
be
most
people
important thing.
pleasing. Yeah.
Yeah, people pleasing. Boy, that sure is a big paradigm for women. Talk about
Yeah.
that one, because
Yeah.
that's a sticky one. I work with people to get to untussle that, and the the untussling of that pattern is actually taking the opposite action and saying no for a little while. Like, almost to
Yeah.
break it, you got to go the other way and say no to everything, just to feel all
Yeah.
the feels of all the things that are holding you back inside against saying no when it's an authentic no. How do you handle that with people? Because that's a big one
Yeah.
with women.
Well, for me, it's like, and I think it is with most women, is we have to go to the other extreme. It's like a pendulum, like that no you're talking about. And we know that I know that it didn't feel quite right, but it was almost like I had to feel what that was like to have that strong of a no in order to come back to a place. And I have to say, almost daily, I encounter this where I realize I have a choice. Like, oh, I could, be more committed to that person feeling good, or, feeling good about myself, you know, or I could really ask what is the truth here? Like, what is my truth, and how can I meet them and honor their truth with this? So I'm
Yeah,
thinking,
honoring their
does that make
truth.
sense?
Yeah, it does actually,
Yeah.
because this is a big part of my healing the mother wound, actually, was because my mom in her lifetime, up until now, is a lot of times chosen to be not happy with whatever is going on for whatever reason. If, just sort of
Mhm.
taking that sort of cynical slant or the more critical slant on things is just her design, actually. And so, but as I came into that configuration with more optimism,
Mhm.
then I always wanted to change her.
Mhm.
Like I spent a good deal of time trying to change her and make her see things optimistically. Then she would, of course, that would cause like a ripple, like backwards. Like, no, I stop trying to change me or show me how to see things. So it caused a lot of conflict trying to get me to make her happy. And it caused me to kind of put my focus in a place I didn't need to be, really. I mean, I was learning a lesson, so I think it's all perfect the way it happened. But
Yeah.
what I've learned now is that, well, I know for a fact you cannot make anybody else happy. I know that.
Yeah.
It's not, you cannot make a person happy that doesn't want to be happy. And you can't make a person see a point of view that doesn't want to see that point of view. Is impossible. So, and the more you try to do it, the more friction there gets. Like, the more you
Mhm.
try to change somebody, the more friction there is. So you
Mhm.
actually can't do it. And so
Mhm.
there is this really clear inner boundary within me now of, I'm not responsible for anybody else's decision on how they choose to conduct their emotional state or their inner state or anything like that. It's not my business.
Hmm. Yeah. And that word boundary that you said is really key, because there was this perception, I think, for me, that a boundary meant that I was keeping people out.
Mm-mm.
And I mean, my experience has been is a boundary is about holding the integrity of my energy. Yeah. Yeah.
Holding the
And
integrity of my energy. I love that.
hmm
Rather than like having to like build walls and slam doors.
hmm
You know,
hmm
which
right.
I
Because
did a
if
good
you're
part of
all
that.
heart-centered and you're here to make a difference on the planet, it's like that doesn't feel right. There's something about that that seems really like not part of what we're here to do. So that's what really shifted for me is to visually and energetically feel my energy, my integrity. And then if I'm at all doubt with what I'm saying to someone, I could feel the difference in that. I can feel that I'm getting maybe smaller, you know, or maybe I'm feeling cracks, but to me, it's become a very visceral thing.
Yeah.
And then to speak from that place, to myself and be honest first, like, do I really feel like that person's pushing against me? Then I need to be stronger with what I'm saying, because my energy is coming in to protect myself. Or vice versa. Maybe my energy is coming in here because um, and what I really need to do is open my heart more and be more honest with them. Maybe I'm not being vulnerable enough to let them know what's really going on with me. And so again, that's our throat, right? That's
That's
our.
the throat chakra.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, you know what's so interesting is I've had that experience what you're talking about, and sometimes when I feel that, it's like a little notice to me that I might be projecting or stepping over the line somehow, like I'm putting my stuff on somebody else
mm-hmm.
in a, and so then it's a moment of checking, like, okay, who am I being right now? Am I
Yeah,
being my personality right now, or am I being my soul self right now?
yeah,
And if I open to my soul self, does my soul self even need to engage in this conversation at all? Is it necessary?
mm-hmm,
Is it part of my function in this moment, or is it just my personality that's trying to control something or make sense of something or whatever, make
yeah,
somebody like me, So can I just open, and I like when you say open your heart, because I do that. I open my heart and I breathe and I trust that, okay, if I'm not meant to be, if I just crossed a boundary, it'll be clear to me in about 2 seconds once I relax.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And there's a word that you just mentioned there. Oh, control. That's what it was. And I wanted to speak about control for a while.
Yes, let's
I'd
talk
like
about
us to
that.
kind of dive into the deep end of control, because I noticed for me, like that piece of, once I could admit to myself when I was trying to control someone, or I was even trying to control myself, like what I was saying, even though my soul was like, you need to speak this, or this is what's really it, or you're holding back, I was trying to control my soul. And to me, that's like, nothing goes well when that
Yeah,
happens
you're
in some of
trying to
that.
obstruct your greater presence.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that's like such a piece of awareness that we want to drop into, is when is that control showing up, and why? And what part of, I often ask myself when that shows up, what part of myself is needing control? Because that's really speaking to the fear. There's a part of myself, whether it's my child, whether it's my whatever, that's in a place of fear that's needing to be controlled. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, let's address that fear. Let's look at what that part of myself is not getting right now, that it feels like it needs to be in control over the soul.
Yeah,
So I
that's
just
so
wanted to offer
beautiful.
that.
Yeah, and then really like the will center is where all of this takes place. The third chakra, the will center.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing I learned about the will center very recently through a powerful retreat that I went on was that the will center is sort of like, it can be like the little battle zone between between the personality and the soul, and whose will is going to be exerted.
Mm-hmm.
And from my experience of it, whenever I operate in my personality will, I can get a lot done and I can push through things, but it's really the end result is a lot smaller and more contracted and constricted than what I could accomplish if I surrender to my soul's will and allow that soul to put in motion things, magnetize things to me that are in alignment with what I'm here for.
Hmm.
Then things just sort of flow and happen beyond, like, and then I can be in a state of awe. And a state of awe is a pretty beautiful state to be in. Like, wow, how's that happening? And the brain can puzzle over it for a while, but it'll never find the answer. So this is the tussle that I've been engaged in over the last several years, last 8 years or so in my waking up process. And I finally crossed over into the soul space. So it feels really good because it feels good to the soul too. Like the soul part of me is like, this is great. You're finally trusting me. Awesome. I've been here the whole time talking to you. This is great. You're finally listening. And the personality part of me is kind of like, okay, well, I'm still here, get rid of me. So it must be all right, so there's like this dance happening of like, okay, well, maybe it will be more interesting to let the soul have control of the will center to see what more is possible. Like it might be really more interesting to find out that game than the other game I've been playing, 50 plus years. So that's kind of the spot I'm in. And the realization that trust yourself, like everyone else says, trust yourself, trust yourself, trust yourself. What the hell does that mean? And then this weekend I realized, oh, it's like trust yourself. The self is the soul. Trust yourself. Oh, okay. Now I'm getting it. It takes a while for these phrases to make sense, I think, and they make sense when you're ready for them to make sense.
Yeah, that's key, isn't it? When we're ready for it, it makes sense because we can get those ideas at one level, but it's quite another thing to have them to embody that wisdom and those truths. And I found for myself that this navigating, or I'm going to say just like any other relationship with our, personality, our will, power, with our soul, just like any other relationship, you got to navigate it, right? And so for myself, over the years, as I've navigated that relationship, I could do it really easily in some areas of my life. I could be in flow, like in relationships or with health or whatever. But the last holdout of my will and my personality has been my business, because
Interesting.
that's where I hadn't quite, and that shifted a lot the last year, and it's been huge. But it's so interesting to know how sometimes there's one area that's the holdout.
Mm.
So it's just another level of integration. And I remember, I think I have this written in my journal somewhere, but literally my soul was like, you keep forgetting me. I'm right here.
Yeah,
I can help you with
the
this.
one connected to all that is right here. I'm trying to help you. Like,
Yeah. And I would have conversations like, well, no, this isn't in your domain. This isn't what you can help me. And it's so funny. I laugh at that now. But I just want to also issue an invitation to anyone that's listening to this and resonating to maybe look at, if you feel like you've got it, maybe there's another area where that merging can be even more powerful, and trusting your soul or inviting your soul's voice into that area of your life.
I like how you said there was one last holdout for you, and it was your business. For me, it's been my motherhood.
Ah,
Like I just have this sense of responsibility about my sons
mhm,
that I just couldn't let it go. Like kept trying to control and steer and guide the family in the situation and the all the things that are actually totally beyond my control. Like, but trying to influence it, trying to change it, trying to illuminate it, trying to help them see what was going on, trying to help them change to stop hurting my sons and all of this stuff. And I finally was just like, this weekend in the retreat, I realized, yeah, like I asked for better boundaries. And the better boundary was to realize that, you know, I am a soul. Both of my sons are each souls. They chose to come into this configuration. They have their own relationship with the other souls involved. And it's not my business to be involved in the middle in their relationship with the other people involved. And it's not my desire to have those other people, like when my one son comes home, I don't need him to come home with an angry mob.
Mhm.
Like, I'm trying to have a relationship with my son. I want to have a relationship with my son without anybody else in the room. Like, I just want my son and me, period. So it's a hard line I had to make within myself, that I would give that. And because I'm giving that, I'm just receiving it too. Like, there's a
Mm.
hard line. I'm not involved. Because I don't know what soul agreements happen between my son and his father, or my son and his grandmother. I don't know any of that. All I know is that I have a soul agreement with my son to be his mother. So it cleared a lot of things up. Like, I realized I was overstepping so many boundaries in trying to fix everything, that rather than allowing the process of the soul to happen, which is bigger, like, it's none of my business actually.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, but it's family. You brought up family, and that's always tricky. There's so
It's
many.
messy.
It's messy. I like that word. It's very messy because there's so much, in addition to ancestral, there's just so much energy imprinting over the years.
Energy imprinting,
Hmm.
yes. And energy
Hmm.
imprinting you can actually feel in your body, which makes it more triggering.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I know for myself that when I had a family member that I really felt needed me to interfere and advise and give solutions. This was some years ago. It had to reach the point where I just said, I'd give up. There was a
Yeah.
surrender piece. I surrender. And that was the best thing, because what it did is it empowered that family member to choose a different path. Because I realized, and I hadn't at that time, that my interfering or advising or trying to give solutions was actually, in a way, sending a message that they weren't capable of doing it themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's also trying to prevent the egg from cracking. And
Hmm.
the metaphor that I got from Spirit of, like, you can't make an omelet unless the egg cracks, was like, oh shoot. So if I'm all busy trying to prevent anyone from getting hurt, and try to force everyone to be in peace, it's a false peace if there's stuff brewing under the surface that needs to be exposed. It's
Hmm.
not true peace. It's a lie.
Yeah.
It's a smear of peace, but it's
Yeah.
not really peace. So in order to have true peace, peace means to bring to harmony, just competing or disruptive elements, things that don't agree, right? and
Mhm.
and the only way to do that is to have the things that don't agree rise to the surface,
Yeah.
to be witnessed
Yeah.
with compassion and have space. So if
Yeah.
I'm trying to block, these people from having their perspective on my son, or a perspective about me, or all of this kind of stuff, if I'm trying to, like, make it not so, or block it, block, then all I'm doing is standing in the way of the egg being cracked that my son is here to do. He's here to crack his own egg. So I need to let it happen and just trust that it's all in divine timing and everything's happening exactly as it needs to happen, and not get involved with it.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
hard to do as a mother because there's the mama bear. Oh, the mama bear energy is so strong. It's like, get away from my cubs, like, I will
Yeah.
eat you.
Yeah. I guess it's that lioness energy that comes
It
up. And
is.
I'm not a mom, and I know what you're talking about, because I think it's that fierce protective love, that fierceness.
Fierce love.
Yeah, and I've heard about it from a lot of friends, and witnessed it, and with clients as well. And there's something, I think there's a perception shift that happens, where it's like, oh, but I thought this was the way to do it. I thought that was the way to fiercely protect my loved ones. And then it's like, oh, there's another way,
Yeah.
right? And we
To
can,
let them have their lessons and hold their
yeah,
hand through it. Like, okay, I'm right here. You're going to have your lessons, even if it's about me. Like, I'm here to give you space to process your lessons until you can process them for yourself.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
really it.
Yeah,
Simple.
that's it. It's actually so much more simpler than we
Simple.
make it to be. And that's the thing with going from that push or force energy to the flow. It's like we've been doing it the hard way for so
So
long.
long and messy
So
and
long.
entangled, and everybody's like got their roots wrapped around each other's trees, like trying to get water out of it. It's like, give me the water. Meanwhile, the water's like down there, put your roots in the ground, stop trying to
Yeah.
suck me dry. It's not here, it's in the ground.
Mm,
We're just here to
yeah.
hold space for each other, not suck each other dry and have all these expectations of each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been doing this practice lately that is if I notice anything feels hard to me or difficult, I stop because I'm like,
Ah,
that's the old paradigm. That's the old paradigm. And then I just kind of examine my assumptions, like what am I assuming about this, that I couldn't ask for help or that it needed to be done a certain way or a certain time or, I just go stop. And then I'm like, how can I invite simplicity and ease into it? And somehow it aligns me with what I feel is the new paradigm now, which is
mhm.
ease and flow and trust and all the things we're talking about being aligned with our, soul self. And I am remembering this. I woke up one morning, I think my subconscious is working while I'm sleeping. So I wake up and I go, and I heard, our minds thrive on complexity, but our souls yearn for simplicity.
Mm.
So when I catch myself in that practice where things are getting really complicated, I'm like, oh, okay, so my mind's gotten overly involved in this. What does my soul have to say? And, it's so much easier. It's just been phenomenal. The time and the energy and even the money I'm saving, just pausing and
Yeah,
just
just pausing. I
pausing.
love that. And I've also had the experience where, like, sometimes there's something I'm going to do because I do a lot of transformation work. So, like, I'll have a retreat or something coming up, and it'll be easy and graceful signing up for the retreat. Like, it's just like, there's the money and there's the thing, and just like, woo, okay, I'm going. But then there's sometimes there's like this energy of like fear, like, oh, it's going to happen. Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. So I also learned to distinguish that, like, some of the stuff I'm doing toward evolution or greater evolution, it does cause fear of the more primal systems in my body. And so I shouldn't stop if there's fear. I could keep going, keep stepping through it and still build the foundation of it. But like, yeah, it's not a force. It's just like, it's like a trusting walking the way that's laid in front of me,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like that.
Yeah. I use, I like to think of it as a loving witness. So when I see that fear coming up,
Mm,
I just honor it, as and in that loving witness energy. Because I used to either say, and I'm sure we've all heard this before. What was that? It's like, fake it till you make it.
yeah, no, that doesn't work.
Fake it till you make it. And it's like, no, that doesn't work. Especially the more sensitive you are, the more, committed you are to your journey. It's like it feels out of, integrity. It doesn't feel like truth. So that's been something for me is, okay, what's the balance in there? If I'm not faking it till I make it, and if I'm not either going to be stuck in fear, what's sort of that in between? And for me, it's like, okay, being a loving witness to the fear, allowing it to have a voice, and then what's really the truth here? Does it mean I have to stop? Does it mean I should slow down?
Yeah,
Like,
checking
okay,
back
soul.
in with soul, like, is this really for me?
Hmm.
And whatever way you get there. And
Yeah.
I'm a fan of using whatever modalities you got, you need to use out there to get in touch with your soul wisdom. Like, if you need to play an oracle game, if you need to use a pendulum, if you need to meditate for 3 hours to get clear, if you need to use some stone allies, if you need to go to plant medicine, I mean, whatever it is that you need in order to get clear, that's what you need. You're on your soul's journey, integrating with the body, with the vessel. And this is another really cool thing I learned this weekend, which was so enlightening, is that it's like the human vessel is a car, right? Like, it's a vehicle.
Right.
And it comes with an autopilot operating system. Okay, so like this whole thing we're doing is taking manual control of the vessel. The soul is taking manual control of the vessel. That's all that's happening. But the autopilot system is very strong from thousands of years of programming from our ancestors, is very strong. And from all your experiences you've had in your life so far, right? So yeah, depending if you've had a really challenging life up until now, your operating system, your autopilot's really strong. And it has layers and layers of defense. So getting through all the layers with patience, and like I love how you said loving witness, is important, because the more relaxed that operating system feels, like you really got it, like you're loving witness, you're compassionate, you're really present with it, you understand why it's presenting all these layers of fear and all of this, and you don't get frustrated or irritated by it. You just sort of like, oh, okay, this is the next layer. All right, I have a really strong operating system. Thank you, ancestors. Okay, I'm going to release that next layer so I can take control of this vessel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Curiosity is such a good energy to bring in at that time too. Because I find, at least for myself, I can get really serious about it. Even the work, even going through those layers, like that's the work, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's like curious, like, well, what's that coming up? Oh, how interesting. I'm afraid of that. I wonder why that is.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, ancestor 5 generations back. I mean, okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
We
Yeah.
forgive it because, I mean, I feel like the forgiveness of ourselves and the forgiveness of our ancestry is so important at this time, to really understand that everything that we're like dealing with, battling with, whatever you want to say, inside of ourselves is a result of all these thousands of years of lifetimes. But, everybody's been doing their best the whole way along. I mean, we've done our best every step of the way up into our lifetimes, right? You can look at yourself. You can look backwards from now at you at 20 and say and judge it, but that's not very fair, because
Mm-hmm.
at 20 you were doing the best you could with what you knew at the time.
Right.
So we're all doing the best we can, and that's how we can forgive it all. Whatever it is we're going through, it's like, don't
Yeah.
blame your ancestors. Just be like, okay, well, that's just what happened, and I took it on, and I'm healing and clearing it now. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that forgiveness piece is so huge, because ultimately it's like, can we forgive ourselves too? Because we're hardest on ourselves. So can
Totally.
we forgive ourselves for making ourselves wrong or telling us a certain way, or, because for me, that just takes me out of the present. All of a sudden, I'm back wherever that was, where I haven't let go, and I have certain judgments about myself, and I'm trying to change the past. I can't change the past. I can only be here and create in this moment.
Yeah, I forgive myself for being a overprotective mother, and then waking up and becoming a soul witness. And I forgive myself for the impact that had on my kids, who were like, whoa, what happened? Everything just changed.
Ah,
Yeah, it was a big
yeah,
shift.
that is a big shift. Yep.
Yep. So, well, we're learning as we go, aren't we, Vasi? And as women leaders, it's important for us to trust the process we're going through, because we're key to this evolutionary time right now is the women's voice coming forward. So we need to trust that process, and realize that it's okay if nobody gets it, right?
Hmm.
Because we're just the
Hmm.
pioneer. Going back to that metaphor you introduced, I love that pioneer metaphor of we're leading a new way.
Yeah. The process, when I used to hear, oh, trust the process. Well, what process am I in? Because it feels a little chaotic at the
Be
moment.
more specific.
Yeah, I was like, I needed to be sort of. And when you said that, what I heard is the process that we're in is creating something new in a way we've never been here before. So, but that's the process, is in the newness of this, and to trust that we can be those master creators that we came here to be. To me, that's the process. And this is a new earth. We are creating new systems as the old ones break down, or we're evolving systems, or we're our families, our communities, our businesses, everything is being redesigned and realigned. And so the process is to trust that we will get through this, not in a Pollyanna optimistic way, but in a way that says, this is what we came here to do, and we're doing it
And we're
every day.
doing it. And love is fierce. And I've learned that love is uncompromising.
Yeah.
So, so there might be some souls who, like we were talking about before the show, don't want to come along with this new part. There could be some souls who are like, I still like playing Monopoly and I don't want to stop because I'm winning.
Yeah.
And, their love is fierce. So there'll be
Yeah.
big lessons, for people who cling and are attached to old ways of being and doing things. And so everything is designed, we're all learning. If there's one thing I learned is that I'm learning, everybody on the planet is learning, everyone's learning the lessons that they need, and we all work in conjunction with each other to learn what we need to learn. So we have to trust that, the process happening is happening for a reason, and that nobody's a victim to their soul. Okay. Like, we have to get rid of that idea that, that there's victims on the planet. There's no victims on the planet. Everybody on the planet has got a soul that's guiding it with a curriculum.
Yeah, and it's a choice whether we're working with our soul or we're working against our soul,
Yeah,
right? We get to choose that.
we get to
Yeah.
choose that. And if you work against your soul long enough, and the whole movement is changing chorus, the chorus is shifting, you're going to find yourself in a tight spot.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that'll be a lesson too. And you'll learn
Yeah.
and grow through that. So there's nothing wasted.
Yeah.
And this isn't the only life you'll ever have. So that's the other thing. It's like, stop being so attached. I mean, we're learning a lot right now, and it's okay. These vessels will serve as well as they can for as long as they can, and through this transitional process. And then, as we need, we'll get a new upgrade. So I think it's all perfect. I think, I'm shifted perspective. So I have compassion for anyone who's in a different perspective right now that hasn't quite gotten this perspective yet, that it can be a little scary when you see things on the news and you see people dying and you see, destruction and things happening. And that's very disturbing. And this perspective just offered in order to make it easier to realize that there's a bigger thing at play that's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was my point too, is that, and I love how you said that, it's like there's something bigger here. And that's the process that, we have to trust, is that this isn't, in vain. And one of the things I see a lot, and I have felt from time to time, is a weariness,
Mm.
because this isn't our first lifetime, as you said, right? And we will have others potentially. And so it's like, okay, I can't keep going this way. And for myself, when I felt that weariness, or maybe a sense of despair or hopelessness, and seeing what's out there, or feeling like things aren't moving quickly enough. I like things to move quickly.
Me too.
The change isn't coming quickly enough. What I found I have to do is actually do something, and this is counter to everything most women do. I have to do something for myself,
Mm.
whether it's self-care or whether it's something that's
Rest.
just fun or playful. It's like when that weariness comes in, there can be an aspect of our souls weary too.
Yeah, our
It's
soul is
not just our
tired,
physical,
man.
our
We've been
soul's weary.
teaching at this school for a long time.
Yeah, so
Really
let's
tired.
honor that. And the
Yeah.
best way to do that is for me, is to play or to find what makes me happy. And, even if it's for 20 minutes, I mean, and I think that's what this being a pioneer is all about too, is not being in that energy 100% of the time, or 110% of the time.
Yeah, it's heavy energy we're
Yeah.
transitioning on the planet, and we're doing it in an embodied way, which means we really feel the density of it and the heaviness of it, and some of the patterns we're clearing from our ancestry, or some of the things we're feeling in the world that are circulating around the globe, since this is a closed system. We feel everything that's happening. So this can be a very dense, heavy experience. And so, yeah, you've got to consciously, I love that you said that, consciously gift yourself rest, consciously honor the weariness, and gift yourself some joy, some elevation, play some frequencies a lot, like give yourself a nice environment to heal,
Mm-hmm.
sage your place out, play with your crystals, like whatever you got to
Yeah.
do. Like I've got so many stone friends on right now. It's crazy. This one's a deep, deep heart of the earth one. I can't remember its name, but it's like a deep
Oh,
blood earth, stone, and it's really helping me. So
wonderful.
go find yourself an ally,
Yeah.
to help with the density. Woof.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
gotta shake it off.
Exactly. Exactly. And that you mentioned the word healing, and I love, I don't know if you've heard this before, but the root of healing, the Latin root is wholeness. And so it's like returning to wholeness,
Returning to
whatever
wholeness.
makes us whole. And that's going to be different for every single one of us. I love that you talked about rocks, because I have in front of me 4 crystals I set up here right in front of my laptop, and they're part of our conversation. They're what's helping me stay in this energy, of our conversation. And I invited them in, and they'll probably be with me today too. And so I think it's like, just, I love what you said about having access to all of it, using whatever it is to connect with your soul. Yeah.
Using whatever it is, whatever you got to do to connect with your soul and get through the experience with some joy and some gratitude is what you got to do. So keep stepping the steps, everybody. Keep stepping the steps. Know that you're a pioneer. It hasn't been done before. There isn't a rule book this time. And you got to follow your soul's guidance and your inner knowing from all those lifetimes and all that learning and teaching. So you got to step the steps as a pioneer and trust yourself. Keep moving on. So Vasi, how do people work with you? Do you have an offering or some way for people to get deeper with you or get started working with you?
Yes. I work with people both here in San Diego and Southern California, as well as remotely across the world. So they can work with me either one-on-one, private coaching. I also do I call them master creator circles, both virtual and in person, that are like a mastermind for women entrepreneurs. And I also do what I call VIP retreats here in person in a wonderful place in San Diego, where we go that deep dive that we were talking about earlier. So those are some different ways people can work with me. They go to my website. They can arrange for a free 30-minute consultation. We can talk and figure out if one of those is right for you right now.
And what's your website?
It's Ignite Your Soul, and it's spelled SOL, Ignite Your Soul.
Beautiful. Those will also be in the show notes, everybody, as well as a link to Vasi's podcast, so you can check that out. And I encourage you right now to take the moment of inspiration and click like or give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and share this episode out while it's still fresh in your mind and in your heart. You got value from it. Leave us a comment, because this is how we're going to share it to more people who are ready. We're just planting seeds here. That's all we're doing. We're planting a lot of seeds, and every seed we plant, every share that happens of this episode is another seed being planted. And it's like, this is how we raise the consciousness. Even if somebody doesn't even listen to it, it doesn't matter. It's just been planted now in the conscious field. So the more you can spread it out and the more you can share it and engage with it, then the better. So we ask for your support in that. Thank you very much. You made it all the way to the end. So you got it. You got it. You're right there. So we love you. I'm going to give everybody kisses on the way out. Would you like to join me, Vasi, with giving kisses?
Yeah.
Okay. This is another way we spread the joy. Here comes our kisses. Love you, people. We're doing it together. And we'll see you next time on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now.